We're here today with Edna Preston, who had an incident with a telephone scam, and she's going to explain how it all happened. Edna?
Well, I wasn't home Friday when the initial call came in, and Saturday morning they called again, and a fellow named Andy Goldberg identified himself as working with Publishers Clearinghouse. And he told me I had won $850,000 plus a Rolls Royce. So, well, I sort of laughed at that because I don't think that they call you ahead of time. And I thought, somebody to talk to, so I'll find out more about this. So he told me that he needed me to go to CVS or Walmart and get a card. And then Sunday morning when he called me, he changed his mind. It was 2 cards then. $500 on one and $505 on the other. Now, if anyone asked me, I was to tell them they were cards for family, so that, gift cards. And I wasn't to tell them it was for Publishers Clearinghouse, because they would have taken $1,500 from me for state tax. I don't know how you can get $1,500 from 1,005, but I guess he figured there was a way. I was to pay cash, no credit card, and no check, no personal check. Had to be cash. Okay, I must have had awful deep pockets, but that was it. So I told him, I don't have the cards yet. He says, well, you get them and then call me and tell me that you scratch off the back of it and you give me the registration number or whatever it was. So I said, well, I'm not going to do that. So he says, well, yes, you have to give me the number. Then I know that you've got the cards. Then 3 women in a car and will show up, and the wrecker. I don't even rate a flatbed. I get a wrecker with the Rolls Royce on it. So they were going to show up and leave me my car. So, well, let me see what I can do. I said, I have to hang up the phone and go out and get these things. So in the meantime, I called Publishers Clearinghouse. They have a fraud squad or fraud department. And she says, we never call or mail anything ahead that you have won. We show up in person. That's the surprise. I said, yeah, I figured that. I says, but this fella said that I could have the big bash where they'd have balloons and flowers. I'd like some roses, but they were going to show up with everything. $800,000 check, bank check, and $50,000 would be cash, and the car. So, yeah, sure, okay. So in the meantime, before the fella called back, I called CVS here in Billerica, talked to a young girl named Erin. She told me what the cards looked like. I said, that's what I wanted to know. So I said, phone rang 3 or 4 times. I never answered it because I wanted to let him know that I was still on the road to home. So I finally, I said, he called back and I said, well, I've got the cards. They're green. They look like gift cards. I says, but he says, well, scratch off the back. I says, no, I'm not scratching anything until people, money, car, everything arrives at my door. In front of them, I will scratch off the cards so that they can all see it that I'm not a fraud. And they said, well, no, you have to, they can't come. Now they were supposed to be there Sunday at 10 o'clock. And they couldn't show up until he had the numbers so he could tell them I wasn't just making believe I had them. I said, no, I don't do anything unless I have proof in hand. So he, well, you have to do this. So I says, look, you're breaking up on the phone. I can't hear you anymore. And I hung up the phone. I said, now my caller ID had a lot of phone calls from Jamaica, phone calls from New York. And I says, I've got the numbers written down. And I said, private calls were coming through. And I said, I'm a senior. I live alone. And no way was I gonna fall for something like this. So I called the boys in blue. They called the Billerica police. And a young officer came down. And I said, he was here. My grandson had come to take me out. And my grandson answered the phone first. They asked where I was. And he said, she's all upset from somebody calling her, so she's lying down. So they told him to get me. And he said, no, my Nana's lying down. He says, you give her the phone or we're going to get the FBI after you. I says, poor Brendan was scared silly and he hung up the phone. And I said, the officer was standing there. So the phone rang again. We didn't answer it. Then the next time it rang, 5 minutes later, I said, the officer answered it. And he said, told him, I couldn't come to the phone. Well, why? He says, she's dead. So I guess it sounded a bit incredulous. So he said, well, I talked to her 5 minutes ago. Oh, no, he says, she died 2 years ago. That's her sister you were talking to. So they asked who he was, and he said, I'm Officer Stephen Cogswell. He says, with the Billerica Police. You've got anything to say? You talk to me. There's no, we've got to talk to her. So they kept going along, and I said, finally, I thought he was going to take his Glock and just, I thought he was going to shoot the phone. So he said, no, he says, you're really making me nervous now. You got anything else to say, you call the Billerica, Massachusetts Police Department. And he says, we'll record everything you're saying, put it all down for you. So I guess the guy's still, good old Andy Goldberg, still kept talking.
Wow.
So I said the officer hung up. Then all the different phone calls were coming in, the different numbers. And finally I said, we left. I says, my grandson took me up to New Hampshire for a ride and then over to Rockport. And I said, then he brought me home, and I live alone. But at 1:30 in the morning, my phone rang again.
Oh,
and I says, I've got one beside my bed. But I wouldn't answer that. I said, I sort of crippled up a bit, but I got out to the dining room where my caller ID is, and I picked up that phone. No, I didn't pick it up. I looked at it, and it was the private call again. And I says, then within a couple of minutes, it was ringing again. So I said I unplugged the phone. I went back to bed, but the first time in my life, and I'm a senior, my whole body was shaking. I was so scared. And I said, I didn't get back to sleep. But Monday I had to go out and do some errands. And I said, when I come home, there were 3 more calls on my caller ID. Nobody left a message, but I said it was the same thing. They were still trying to get hold of me. And I said, I'll blow the head off anybody that tries to get in here. I said, I'm a stubborn old Irishman, just don't cross me. But I said, since they're in New York, I've got a long way to go to get hold of them. But I just like everybody to know, whether you're a senior or whether you're a young chicken. Publishers Clearinghouse. Okay, they got a lot of things on, but when you sign those things, look at the small print. It's 5 years from now that they tell you, what's what. And I says, that's why this fella said that it was 2008 that I had written into them. I don't write to people, but
Yeah.
that's that. And I said, anybody that's got at least 1,000 in cash on them all the time, I said, they certainly don't live around here. And I said, don't fall for any scams. If they call, you gotta get proof. Don't ever give up a penny to anyone that you don't know.
Well, that's good advice, Edna, and I'm glad you didn't fall for their trickery.
No.
That's good, and it's a good message for other people out there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.